Now it's time to describe the OODA loop. Be it not the original, but one with some small adaptations. As mentioned in the beginning, OODA originally stood for observation, orientation, decision, action. In recent years the nouns have made way for the verbs observe, orient, decide, act. These verbs better represent that these are continuous activities. When describing the loop, it is best to start with the central activity, orient. Boyd says of this activity, quote, "Orientation is the Schwerpunkt, or focal point. It shapes the way we interact with the environment. Hence orientation shapes the way we observe, the way we decide, the way we act. In this sense orientation shapes the character of present observation, orientation, decision, action loops, while these present loops shape the character of future orientation. It is also essential to keep in mind that it is imperative for success to foster collaboration, different points of views, and different expertises. As Boyd states, quote, "Expose individuals, with different skills and abilities, against a variety of situations. Hereby each individual can observe and orient himself simultaneously to the others and to the variety of changing situations. We orient ourselves, according to Boyd, with an interplay of our cultural traditions, our genetic heritage, our previous experience, and the new information that we receive, with a process of analyzing and synthesizing to come to a new mental image of the world, that we can use to formulate a decision or a hypothesis. Again, this is not a sequential or ordered process. It is a continuous interaction between these 5 elements. The process is also continuously influenced by external factors like new information, interaction and discussion with others, and other feedback loops. The input that we use to orient comes from what we observe. Our observations are data. These observations are a reflection of what we have measured about unfolding circumstances, information that we get from the outside, and the data generated by our constant interaction with the environment. The observations, and especially mismatches that we identify, drive us to orient, or to reorient. The outcome of orienting is that we have a new mental picture, and are ready to decide. We formulate a decision or a hypothesis. Based on this formulation we can act. Either by taking an action based on our decision, or to test our hypothesis. Our action has an effect. As a side note, this is a small adaptation to the original OODA loop, that makes more explicit, that we and our decisions and actions are part of the system, and, therefore, influence and shape the system. We see the effect return in our observations through a feedback loop to our interactions with the environment and/or changes in unfolding circumstances, and/or outside information. This allows us to evaluate, or test, if the decision that we've taken, and the action as a consequence of that decision, have the expected result. We can now also identify possible new mismatches. There are multiple other feedback loops. Our decisions feedback into the observations. When we decide, we generate data. Every time we act we generate new observations. Or we may actually decide that a change is needed in the observations. In that case, our action has a direct effect on what and how we observe. An additional adaptation to the original is the feedback from orient to observe. While we are orienting, we may require additional new information from our observations. Although we could describe this as a separate OODA loop, in which we decide that we need new information and act to achieve that, this is usually not as explicit. So here we depict it as a separate, dashed, feedback loop. So here it is. The OODA loop. This loop also describes modern data-driven decision-making. Basically we identify a mismatch or problem. We analyze the problem and the synthesis leads us to collect data or observations. We orient ourselves using either analysts or more advanced data science methods. We form hypotheses and test these, like, for example, early predictive or machine learning models, or new dashboards. And, finally, we use the results to act. With the goal to shape our environment, for example by implementing a recommendation engine on our website, or by using traffic density predictions to adjust our route to our destination, or by providing easy dashboards for decision makers to help them orient.